Good morning. Happy Wednesday. So, good news for both Fraud or Troll and DMA, Denver Metro Audits, whatever the hell his name is. So, there is conclusive evidence that they have now resolved all the issues between them. There is a settlement in place. They filed the notice of voluntary dismissal, where the court is retaining jurisdiction to enforce the settlement agreement. So that one's done and dusted. Congratulations to both parties. You did the right thing. It's always better to settle. I mean, always, there's an exception to every rule, but almost always it's better to settle. And for all of you who are saying that Fraud or Troll swore up and down that he was going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court, well, guess what, folks? You were wrong. You were wrong, and I was right. I remember when I first said that they were going to settle. Everybody was telling me how dumb and wrong I was, but guess what? They settled. So, once again, I was right. You were wrong. Neener, neener, boo-boo. The next thing is, again, comments from Freeman supporters. They absolutely just boggle my mind about how flipping stupid these people are. One commenter suggested that a cop was boning Freeman's wife, and that's why all this is going down. It couldn't simply be because there was DV. It couldn't simply be that. James Freeman absolutely cannot be wrong. Anyone and everyone else is the problem, not James Freeman. So we have to essentially accuse James Freeman's wife of being a whore in order to maintain our view of James Freeman as the new Christ, the new Messiah. What is wrong with you people? James Freeman is a human. There are parts of him that are good. There are parts of him that are bad. You can agree to disagree on which parts are which and how much he has of either. But he is a human. Don't idolize people. What is wrong with you? He's not Jesus. I promise you that. He hasn't even been terribly effective as an auditor. But to accuse his wife, imagine, God forbid that I was ever charged with domestic violence. God forbid. The last thing I would want anybody to do is to accuse my wife of being a whore because they thought I was some pure, innocent angel who could do no wrong. Don't accuse anyone of being a whore unless they're a whore. But if you really like James Freeman, don't accuse James Freeman's wife of being a whore. What's wrong with you? These people are flipping retarded. I'm trying not to swear. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm just trying not to. Keep these videos family friendly as I talk about sexual infidelity of married persons. That just blew my mind. Speaking of which, another James Freeman supporter said, I'll bet, James Freeman's wife feels really bad about this now. And again, I think to myself, what evidence do you have of that? You don't like James being in jail pending trial, so you think his wife doesn't? What if, pause for a second and consider the following. What if she called the police because she wanted to call the police? Because she thought she was the victim of DV? What if the purpose for her calling the police was to have the police do something about it, up to and including arresting him? What if she's getting exactly everything that she wants? Have you paused to consider that? She might not have the same infatuation with James Freeman that you do. She might have been beat by him before. Generally speaking, in my experience, the first time DV is usually accompanied by a history of DV, i.e., things have been bad. there has been abuse. And it's just finally got to the point where the person says, enough, I'm tired of being abused. I want this done. That's when I see them. Very rarely, it happens, but very rarely is it just this one time. In fact, on a significant percentage of the time, it is years of abuse. So if I was betting, I have no evidence of this, and I'm not suggesting he did it, but if I was betting, I would bet that this isn't the first time. If this abuse did happen, I would bet it's not the first time it happened. If it happened, I would bet it's not the first time. Just based on my experience. I have a lot of people commenting, oh, well, things have been bad for me and I've never beat a kid. Right? That's you. You're not James Freeman. So congratulations for telling the world how morally superior you are. But in my experience, abusers tend to be abusers. I.e., non-abusers don't often just abuse that one time. Victims are often victims. I.e., if you've been the victim of domestic violence, you are more likely to get into a future relationship where you will once again be the victim of domestic violence. If you have been the victimizer, if you have been the committer of the domestic violence, you are more likely to commit domestic violence in the future. So you saying, I haven't done it, well, congratulations, you're not the demographic, buddy. And again, I'm not excusing his behavior at all. I'm just saying that, you saying, well, I didn't do it, who the fuck cares what you did or didn't do? Congratulations. Here's your trophy. Go try to buy a candy bar with it. You won't be able to, but go try. And the final thing that I want to talk about is some of these blithering idiots. I've seen multiple comments. One of them was like a wall text about how the police are ignorant, not trained, etc. And why do Americans let, ignorant police out there onto their streets? Well, first of all, you're retarded. Let's just start there. In order to be a police officer, specifically in Arizona, you have to have a high school diploma or GED. But that's not it. But wait, there's more. You also have to be certified through a police officer training course that's qualified through the state. Or you have to be a law enforcement officer that's licensed in another state, or you have to have a federal law enforcement background, federal law enforcement training, and at least I think it's like a year or two of working as a federal law enforcement agent. You have to have maybe your certification lapsed, then you might not have to actually go back to school, but there might be a loophole for you there. And by certification lapsed, I mean you already got the certificate from the training course. And the training course, I've never gone to one, but I know a guy. I specifically know a guy, good dude. He took me out to lunch one day. He was in California. He was in the area. He stopped by and was like, hey, I want to take you to lunch. And I was like, free lunch. Let's do it. Anyway, he kept me informed about what was going on. Apparently, he decided to go into law enforcement because he wanted to be a good cop. Because he heard me talking about, good cops and bad cops. So he decided to go into law enforcement at an advanced age because he wanted to be a good cop. And he kept in touch with me throughout the process. And if I remember correctly, it was about a year. Maybe a little under a year, maybe a little over a year, but about a year that he was in training, that he was going through this training academy. And he would send me some of the test questions and be like, hey, what do you think about my answer? And they were interesting. I mean, I didn't really spend a lot of time on them, looking at them. But a lot of the questions were like, here's your fact pattern. Here are the facts. What would you charge? That was kind of interesting to me because I've never been a prosecutor. So I've never charged anybody with a crime. I've always been on the other side. Like, here's why you can't charge that. So that was interesting. And he sent me a coin, a graduation coin. So I have some knowledge of it. So these people are trained. They get a year-ish, plus or minus, of training before they become law enforcement. So they're not untrained. And the caliber of the questions that were being asked that I saw are something that I am absolutely 100% certain that not a single James Freeman supporter could answer. They would not get a right answer. They couldn't. So the problem with James Freeman supporters is they believe there is a problem, but they don't understand the system. So they don't understand if there is, in fact, a problem. And they blow things out of proportion. Like the guy who brought up, there's this many police killings a year. Police in the U.S. kill more people than in any other country. Completely ignoring the demographics of the United States versus those other countries. The availability of firearms in the United States as opposed to those other countries. The ability to carry knives. Like, you can't carry a knife in the UK. So comparing the US, where you can carry a gun, where you could carry a knife, to the UK, where you can't carry a gun or a knife, you're going to get different results. Police are less often required to use deadly force in a situation where people aren't armed. It also ignores all of the whether or not these particular killings were justified, whether or not the cop should have pulled the trigger. If you ever want to be depressed, go watch like the police body cam footage channels where they show these arrests where people charge the cops with knives, where people draw guns and start shooting at the police, where the police can sometimes even get shot. And a lot of times, the guy who does the thing, or gal who does the bad thing, pulls the knife and charges, or pulls the gun, or whatever, a lot of times that person dies. And if you look at the comment section, take a minute, go through it. You see very little sympathy for the person who was killed by the police because they deserved it. Because they did the thing that required essentially the cop to do the thing to save his own life and or the lives of other people. So it just takes a raw number. Great, your raw number. No nuance, no understanding of it, no breakdown of how many of these was the cop actually wrong to do the shooting on. Why don't you represent that number? We're going to hold cops accountable for defending their own life. We're going to say you're a bad person because you killed someone in self-defense, justified self-defense where they were pointing a gun at you. You're a bad person now. It's just stupid. It's just stupid. James Freeman supporters are unfortunately too stupid to understand the problems. Too stupid to understand what is and isn't a problem. Too stupid to understand what the actual problems are. And way too stupid to come up with any idea of how to fix the problems. Or even just make them a little bit better. Like, libertardism, everybody, do your own thing. We don't need the government. I mean, that's completely asinine. There are bad people. Again, go watch the police body cam video channel. There are bad people out there who want to hurt other people. We need the cops. Congratulations, you think you could defend yourself. But those cops in body armor with ARs and, Glocks with extended mags or high capacity mags, not the lame California 10-round mag, but like 17, 19 round mags. Those guys get killed sometimes. And unless you're rolling around in body armor and a utility belt with all sorts of, with an arsenal on it and an AR and a shotgun, I mean, you just prepared for war. maybe you should leave it to the police. Maybe we need the police. Maybe we don't need idiots like you going around deciding who needs to die and when justice needs to be met out. Maybe we leave it out to the police and to the DA and to the defense attorney and to the judges. Maybe we have people who understand the law, who've had formal training in the law, because those police courses, they're basically a formal training, not as a lawyer, but they're basically a formal training on criminal law and criminal procedure. And you're saying it's only a year. Well, you know what? In law school, you get, I think, 1 year, so 9 months of criminal law and criminal procedure. I'm not saying their training is equivalent to the training of an attorney, but they get about the same amount of time, as far as I can tell, on that specific subject. Just stupid people opining about things they know shit about. Like absolutely dog shit about. Anyway, I was gonna try not to swear, and I ended up swearing. So, fuck it. Have a great day.